But it wasn't sincere because she's had a long history of saying woke, annoying things. Our new Snow White.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
Rachel Zegler is completely unraveling after her Evita scheme revealed her as the reigning disaster of public relations, where paying fans were left staring at a screen while strangers outside experienced the actual event. Stack that on top of 5 years of theatrical failures, a $50 per screen Snow White catastrophe, and self-absorbed interviews where she likens herself to classical masterpieces. This is downright embarrassing.
Headline after headline demonstrating the horrible reputation that she has made for herself because she just can't seem to keep her own thoughts in her brain.
Let's dive into what might be the biggest rip-off to hit the London theatre scene since tourists shelled out money to see Cats. Imagine this, you're seated inside the legendary London Palladium, ticket in hand, after dropping nearly £500, that's $50,000, for what's supposed to be a live showing of Evita starring none other than Rachel Zegler. You're anticipating lights, theatrics, an actual live performance. Maybe even a solid vocal or two. But what do you get instead? A massive screen. Yep, a giant, overhyped LED display. Because Rachel, rather than performing live on stage like any professional being paid to do so, chooses to scale a balcony like some sort of musical Rapunzel and belt out "Don't Cry for Me Argentina" to the crowd outside, for free.
Paying customers were waiting to see her on stage, and she took off and headed to a balcony where she could belt out Evita's hit song "Don't Cry for Me Argentina" live, for free, to strangers on the street.
So now the folks on the street get the live vocals for free, $0, £0, zero anything, while you, sitting inside the venue with the receipt and fresh credit card debt, are left watching a live stream on a screen. You could have caught that same footage on TikTok from your own couch without being $500 short and stuck holding a bottle of overpriced theater wine. People were so furious they were shouting refund in 4 different languages. Yes, 4. The crowd outside probably assumed some kind of crisis was unfolding inside the building. But nope, it was just Rachel Zegler putting on a masterclass in how to turn a performance into a public relations nightmare with a bait-and-switch stunt.
Snow White, the film that bombed so hard that it only brought in $50 a screen over Mother's Day weekend, is now somehow the #1 streaming hit on Disney+. And before you ask, you're going to say, how did this happen?
And honestly, this isn't even surprising anymore. It's just the newest addition to Rachel's ever-growing museum of self-inflicted chaos. At this rate, it wouldn't be shocking if she opened her own theme park called Zeglerland, where the whole gimmick is paying good money just to get played.
So in the end, it's really not about talent. It's about watching someone who thought they were above it all finally get humbled. And as far as Hollywood drama goes, this is the sort that not a lot of people can look away from.
Let's take a step back for a moment. This girl's been in the industry for what, 5 years? Not 10, not 20, just 5. And in that short span, she's managed to achieve something pretty remarkable: total career self-destruction. She's been labeled box office poison before she even became box office. And that's not just criticism, that's a record. 5 straight film flops. Let me say that again, 5. In a row. It's like success gives her hives.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
Babe, what business do you mean? As in the films that you act in? Like the one that failed at the box office a couple months later, spectacularly? Is that the business?
And we're not just talking average flops. We're talking about burning through nearly $1 billion of studio money. That's billion with a B, enough to bankroll an entire phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Instead, all of it vanished into a Rachel Zegler-shaped black hole of cinematic doom. And it all kicked off with Spielberg's West Side Story in 2021, where she played Maria and somehow managed to walk away with a Golden Globe. Sure, props to her for that. But almost immediately after, she detonated her own brand like she was on a mission to speedrun a full-blown PR disaster simulator.
Anyway, although I've seen lots of speculation that she's been blacklisted from Hollywood for the time being, Zegler is currently being considered for the role of Maria in the Sound of Music stage production, and I just have to wonder why on earth anyone hasn't learned anything from her previous experiences.
Normally in Hollywood, that's the setup for a redemption arc. You screw up, lay low for a bit, reappear humble, shed a few tears on Fallon, and slowly win back the public. But not Rachel. She's convinced she's above the redemption part. She's aiming for a comeback with none of the growth, none of the humility, and the audience just isn't having it.
She's very good at alienating not only her viewers, but just viewers in general with everything that she says and every social media post she makes.
Now let's get into the one that truly sealed her fate, Snow White. Honestly, Disney might as well have called it Snow Hype and Zero Heart. This was supposed to be her breakout moment. But what did she do? She dragged the 1937 original like it was some embarrassing relic. She even dismissed it as evidently 1937, like that was some kind of insult. Girl, yes, it was made in 1937. That's the whole point. It's iconic. It's historic. But instead of honoring it, she trashed it like she was critiquing a failed student project.
Out the very first actress in history to become box office poison before she ever came box office. You know what I'm talking about.
And then she really leaned in. She called the original prince a stalker, a literal stalker, as if he were Joe from You, just because he sang in the woods. Then she went on to mock Andrew Burnup's role in the remake, joking that his scenes could be cut entirely, laughing like it was all just some private joke. It's Hollywood, baby, she shrugged. Yeah, and she played herself. The cherry on top. The film pulled in about $50 per screen over Mother's Day weekend. $50. That's barely the cost of 2 overpriced sodas. And in a classic move, Disney, still deep in denial, tried to spin the disaster by claiming it was suddenly the #1 streaming film on Disney+. Convenient, right? No numbers, no receipts. Just trust us, guys, it's totally crushing it. Sure it is.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
Meanwhile, fans felt completely disrespected. First, she dismisses the original story. Then, she mocks the love angle. After that, she basically implies the male lead's role is irrelevant. And after all that, she still expects audiences to back her. Rachel, you can't smack the crowd and then expect a standing ovation. But nothing compares to the full-blown ego tour that is her public persona. This woman actually compared herself to the winged victory of Samothrace. That's a world-renowned sculpture in the Louvre, for anyone who skipped art history. A literal ancient masterpiece, broken wings and all. And she claims it's her spiritual twin. Seriously? She thinks she's a sacred relic because people still show up despite her flaws. Girl, people rubberneck at car crashes too. That doesn't make you the Mona Lisa.
It was a wholesome family film, and now they've turned it into woke trash. Check this out from Wokeness. Disney's Snow White said that harm should befall Trump and his voters. Do not see this film.
And if that wasn't enough, she actually told her psychiatrist, a licensed medical professional, that every inch of her body, inside and out, deserves to be worshipped. Not appreciated, not respected, worshipped. Then she doubles down with, my compassion has no boundaries except when someone else is on screen. At that point, her compassion clocks out faster than a part-time barista working minimum wage.
And Rachel Zegler, being 23 or whatever she is, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infertility is the only global solution.
She even straight up admitted, I'm a narcissist. Just casually in an interview, like it was some quirky personality trait. Imagine saying that out loud and thinking it's going to come off as charming. No wonder studios are hesitant to cast her. She's not just a risk. She's a walking HR violation with a ring light. And let's not forget the cheekbones. Yes, she genuinely claimed she manifested her cheekbones and dimples. Like she sat in front of a vision board asking the universe for facial structure instead of, I don't know, acting talent or maybe just a little humility. Who needs actual skills when you can strike a pose and hope people forget your last film tanked harder than Cats?
An iconic song, yes, but it's the balcony grabbing all the attention.
5 years in, 5 flops down, an audience full of scammed theatergoers chanting refund, a Disney disaster fading in the rearview, and a woman so out of touch she compares herself to ancient sculpture while singing balcony karaoke to people who didn't even buy tickets. Rachel Zegler somehow still sees fans as disposable props rather than the very people funding her career. And remember that chilly bathroom story she proudly shared on Jimmy Kimmel? A fan sweetly sings a line from Maria as she's leaving the restroom, and instead of laughing it off or showing any appreciation, she says it ruined her whole night. Seriously? Someone sings your breakout song to you, and your first reaction is to storm off like the world's ending? Who even says that on national television? Most celebrities would love to have fans who care enough to hum a single lyric. But Rachel acts like she was emotionally assaulted by a show tune. I can only imagine that poor fan watching the interview, cringing and thinking, wow. I paid for this woman's movie ticket with my own hard-earned money, and she's on TV calling me a nightmare for singing one line.
I think there will be people who are disappointed that she hasn't sung it live in the theatre, but I think it's going to be greatly outweighed by the theatricality of using film in that way.
Then she goes on to complain about having to pretend to like fans at the Snow White ride in Disneyland. Yep, you heard that right, pretend. As if smiling for photos with the very people who support her career is some kind of cruel, soul-crushing punishment. Newsflash, Rachel, this isn't jury duty. These are paying fans who actually care about your work. The absolute least you could do is fake a smile without acting like you're being tortured. If being polite to the people who helped make you famous is that exhausting, maybe it's time to rethink your career path. Because last I checked, treating your audience like a burden isn't exactly a winning strategy for long-term success.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
And it doesn't even end there. Outside the Palladium, while signing autographs, she's simultaneously lecturing fans and promoting whatever trendy cause is currently making the rounds on social media. She can't even sign her name without turning it into a bite-sized political campaign. And the cherry on top. She wraps it all up with a passive-aggressive, "That's enough now, I'm afraid." Oh, perfect. Nothing says, thank you, like abruptly shutting down the very people who showed up to support you. It's the same worn-out pattern every time. Treat your fans like irritating background noise, then act shocked when they don't show up for your movies.
Rachel Zegler, who is the new Snow White, and she's talking about Snow White being woke.
Can you tell us a little bit about your version of Snow White?
Yeah, I mean, Snow White is the girl you remember, but she's definitely made for the modern age, and there's such an emphasis on what it really means to be the fairest of them all. And
speaking of pushing people away, let's talk about how she turned politics into her whole personality. During the 2024 election, she posted a TikTok saying, "Vote for Kamala Harris. It's non-negotiable. Don't like it? Unfollow. I don't need your business." Because nothing screams, "Please support me," like telling half your potential audience to get lost. And when Trump ended up winning, she doubled down with a post that said, "F Donald Trump, and may Trump supporters, and Trump himself, never know peace." You seriously couldn't make this up if you tried. And once the backlash kicked in, she tried to backpedal like none of it ever happened. But here's the thing, the internet doesn't forget, Rachel. You might think you're above it all, but those posts are going to follow your career longer than Snow White will haunt Disney's finance department.
A very long time, it seems that nobody has quite captured the public's disdain like our girl, Rachel Zegler. The damage had been done.
As if things weren't chaotic enough, she decided to post Free Palestine while actively promoting Snow White, sending both Disney and even Spielberg's camp into full-blown damage control. Disney wants its princesses polished and controversy-free, not dropping divisive political takes in the middle of a press tour. But does Rachel care? Absolutely not. In her June 2025 interview with ID magazine, she proudly states that she tells the truth no matter the cost, and insists there are worse things than her own downfall. Translation: yes, I'm torching my own career, but hey, I'm doing it loudly. Self-awareness? Zero. Just a hefty dose of performative martyrdom and a whole lot of look at me being brave.
What I mean by that is she has to say them. Rather than staying in her little skull, she has to spit them out into the world. In an interview published in late June 2025 with ID magazine, Zegler basically said that she views her platform as a responsibility to tell the truth.
And don't even get me started on her 2022 Oscars drama. She wasn't nominated. She was in London filming Snow White. Pandemic protocols were still in place. So what does she do? She runs to social media and complains about not being invited. Like the Academy somehow owes her a seat just for showing up in Hollywood. The entitlement is unreal. A 20-something newcomer throwing a fit because she didn't get red carpet treatment after starring in a Spielberg film. Sorry, Rachel, but that's not how this industry works.
She expressed on social media that she wasn't invited to the Oscars that year as the star of the Best Picture nominee West Side Story, a film that was interestingly distributed by Disney. The reason she wasn't invited appeared to revolve around the fact that this took place during the pandemic nonsense, and we know how Hollywood is.
But of course, after a Twitter pressure campaign from her fans, she ends up getting through the door. Not as a nominee, but as a presenter. And what does she do when she gets on stage? She cracks a joke about not being invited in the first place. If she thought she was making some bold statement, she wasn't. All she did was reinforce exactly why people roll their eyes the moment they hear her name.
Growing up in Australia, I never thought that I would stand on this stage.
And I never thought that I would be here 6 days ago.
Hollywood studios are watching this circus play out in real time. And what do they see? Someone completely unmanageable when it comes to media. She has no filter, no instinct for damage control, and a perfect track record at blowing up her own momentum. Every interview, every social media post, every offhand remark feels like another grenade lobbed directly at her own career.
Question here is, why is Rachel Zegler's downfall so satisfying to so many people? It's not just about her talent, or lack thereof, depending on who you ask. It's about the fact that she has consistently and routinely for years rubbed people the wrong way with her comments.
And then there's the Evita Heist. Because yes, it's so chaotic it deserves its own disaster category. Andrew Lloyd Webber's team somehow thought it was a brilliant move to stage a balcony performance of Rachel singing, while the paying audience inside, who shelled out serious cash, were left watching her on a screen. Imagine dropping premium theater money only to feel like you're at a glorified drive-in. Meanwhile, the freeloaders outside are getting a live concert, cheering like they just won the lottery. The optics. A complete nightmare. Half-empty theater, packed street, and the people who actually paid getting treated like background extras while the sidewalk crowd enjoys the VIP experience.
I would imagine to some viewers. Rachel Zegler is still so young, she's 24, and many of the dumb comments that she made were when she was even younger. So there is a part of me that's like, okay, I mean, we're not talking about some 40-year-old person here. This is a fetus. We are discussing a fetus.
People were livid. Refund demands exploded, and social media was flooded with accusations of a shameless bait and switch. And who ends up taking the brunt of the backlash? Rachel, of course. Because even if the whole balcony stunt wasn't entirely her brainchild, her name's on the marquee. She's the face of the fiasco. Then, to top it all off, she breaks down in tears on stage after receiving a standing ovation. Critics called it fake and performative. Supporters said it was just human emotion. But either way, she loses. Why? Because when your reputation is already circling the drain, every tear looks like a carefully calculated PR stunt.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
Rachel Zegler has this uncanny ability to turn even the most neutral situations into full-blown disasters. The fan encounter in Chile? A mess. Disneyland photo ops? Another PR stumble. Politics on TikTok? An absolute meltdown. And when she actually steps on stage, instead of just focusing on giving a solid performance, it turns into balcony theatrics, live stream screens, and a crowd of paying ticket holders left wondering if they'd just been duped.